we'll be learning about depth of field. In the last video, you saw examples of shallow depth of field. Now, let's move on to see examples of good depth of field. There will be times when you want to take photographs where you do not want parts of your frame to be blurred, but you would like a certain amount of acceptable sharpness in all areas of your frame. This is when you would use good depth of field. Let us see some examples to learn more about this concept.
Now we are going to have a look at pictures which have good depth of field. That is, your range of sharpness is good right from the nearest to the furthest. Here is a line of pillars taken at the Kanchipuram temple, where you see detail on all the pillars. This was probably shot at f16 or f22, so that my range of sharpness or range of clarity is the most. Again, from end to end, you see from the nearest to the furthest very sharp, shot at f22. My shutter speed accordingly would be very slow. My shutter speed could be 1 second or half a second or maybe 4 seconds, 5 seconds, I do not remember. But here I was more keen on my depth of field. So, I cut down to the slowest opening which I could, which was 22, so that I could get from my first pillar to the last pillar sharp. Here aerial view of the temple gopurams shot at f16, so that all the gopurams are sharp or acceptably sharp. Here is another aerial view taken from top of another hill shot at f16, where everything is, I would not say everything is absolutely sharp, acceptably sharp. This again, the Nandi in front was very close to my lens, whereas the temple was about maybe about 150-200 meters away. To get both of them sharp, I had to shoot at f22, so that the Nandi and the temple is sharp. Here again another sample of a good depth of field, where the foreground at the bottom and the top and the sides are all in focus. This again is another sample of a good depth of field, right from the beginning of the bridge till even the trees and the building behind retains some sharpness, retains clarity. Again shot at probably f16 or f22. This is at the Sun Temple in Orissa, shot with a small opening or a small aperture, f16, where you see sharpness, the foreground till the sky, everything is sharp over here because of the small opening or the small aperture at f16. Again at the Sun Temple, I wanted the crowd walking in, they were very close to me, the crowd walking in, and those wheels, the Konarak wheel as they called, sundials, all of them sharp, again shot at f16 to get the foreground, and I would not call it the background, and objects which are further away sharp. This was inside a factory, industrial photography inside a factory, where sharpness, the client would definitely expect sharpness from edge to edge. So, you have to shoot with a small aperture, with a small opening, and you have to build up the lighting. Here this was shot at one of the factories, where you see the table in front right up to the background, everything is sharp, acceptably sharp. Again, there is a lot of difference between being pin sharp and acceptably sharp. Now you have learned that to get good depth of field or good range of focus, whether it is indoors or outdoors, you got to have a small aperture or a small opening like f16 or f22 or even f11 will give you a better depth of field, whether it is indoors or outdoors, the same. You got to have, the point is you got to have a small aperture opening to get good depth of field. Finally, in conclusion, whether you want good depth of field or shallow depth of field is to a large extent in your hands. If you want shallow depth of field, you have to open up your aperture to either 1.4 or 2.8 or 4, and if you want good depth of field, you will have to close down your aperture to 16, 22 or probably even 11. So, this is the creative tool which is in your hand for you to create the image which you need.
The most important thing in photography is to practice photography. No matter how much you learn theoretically, unless and until you do it, you would never learn it. The concept of depth of field, where you have learnt about shallow depth of field and good depth of field, can be mastered and used only when you take photographs with the intention of getting an image with a shallow or a good depth of field. So I urge you to step out and take photographs and experiment and feel and know and understand that how you can have different photographs and nothing is right or wrong. It's all a matter of personal, artistic and creative choice.